Okay, this is the April video chat with fans. This is another split video because I just spent 25 minutes or so talking about Stop Killing Games because we had a ton of announcements on that. Not, I guess for just the regular videos, lately I've just been working on the follow-up episode when I'm not doing the Stop Killing Games stuff. There's some, I guess, minor announcements. One, I have seen mounting complaints about Reddit and a drop in the number of participants. And I don't blame you because the quality of Reddit feels like it's gone downhill in the past few years. And I mentioned before, like, that anecdotal instance of a friend of mine who posted details on how to stop, your panel in your car or certain models of cars from broadcasting telemetry back to the manufacturer. And then that post not only got deleted, but his account got banned after he did that. I'm just thinking that is such a hostile environment for that sort of thing. And I can also say anecdotally, especially towards the beginning, like the Stop Killing Games stuff, the threads on those just got deleted left and right. Like I remember people posting that like on the Crew subreddit. This is like months back. This is like back in April, last April. Yeah. And they would just get deleted, just deleted, And there's been plenty of that. So I am not trying to defend Reddit as a place where we submit the questions for these video chats. I just wanted a place that, it's reasonably easy to just give a vote on, which questions should rise to the top that most people are most interested in me talking about. So it doesn't have to be Reddit. I mean, some suggested YouTube comments, like if I were to make like a community post. Thing is, I've seen a lot of my comments just get like almost automatically deleted on YouTube, or ones I'll see that I wanted to reply to later. I come back, it is just gone. That comment is gone. And I don't know if that's just on YouTube videos or if it's also for like the community tab on YouTube. If like the community tab doesn't have that kind of like aggressive culling of comments that some AI probably thinks is a problem for whatever reason, then I might be okay with doing it on YouTube, but I really don't know. So, I mean, let me know how you prefer we submit these questions in the future. I saw some suggesting Twitter. I don't really want to do Twitter or X because you have the character limit. And, a lot of these questions could get long because they have a lot to say and there's nuance to what they're talking about that it just can't happen in 240 characters. I mean, yeah, maybe you can do the multiple post thing, but I don't know. I've never, this is me being a bit of an old fogey, but I've never really liked how I think Twitter kind of subconsciously encourages less developed thought on a collective level because you can't write out complete thoughts. You're constantly capped for the messages. I mean, it's fine for certain things, but it doesn't encourage like more in-depth discussions. So, okay, somebody's saying Discord. Discord might have a similar issue as Reddit, is my understanding, where it's kind of I don't know. I guess it just depends on the moderation. See, for the Stop Killing Games Discord, that might have a little bit higher moderation because we wanted to make sure this is all fine under EU guidelines and like representing the movement and that sort of thing. So it might be a little more stringent than it should be. Whereas just for the regular questions, I'm not trying to like block people on this. So yeah, anyway, if people have ideas on that, I'm open to suggestions, but I'm not sure what the obvious alternative is to Reddit at this point. Let's see. If somebody has a wish for a new Game Dungeon, well, you can email. I have a whole category on my email for wish list for Game Dungeon. So, um, oh yeah, and the other announcement, it's not that important, but I discovered it when making the Sabotain episode. I've said before, I have 2 Steam accounts. One's kind of left over from a long time ago that has a few games on it. That's the public one where just anybody message me. Another one's sort of my regular one that has most of my games. That older one is no more. Like my Steam account I am locked out because what happened was that was tied to an old email, and I discovered that email just got deleted. Like it just no longer exists. And I think the way you authenticate on Steam is to maybe like prove a proof of purchase. Well, I think the proofs of purchase were probably from like over a decade back and were probably in that email. So I'm not sure there's any way to recover it. Yeah, I was looking through like, so what games I've lost. Thankfully, it's nothing too big, or the games are relatively cheap to get now if I were to get them again. But like some examples of what I've lost are Portal 1. I have Portal 2 on the other account. Half-Life 2 Episode 1. Let's see. Half-Life Source. Do I have that on both accounts? Ooh, that might, yeah, Half-Life Source might be gone there. Counter-Strike. See, that's why I pulled it up, because one thing I left out when I was talking about those texture rainbows in the episode, one of the games I remember that from was Counter-Strike. And so I was going to like, oh, well, I should pull up Counter-Strike, see if it's still there or see if that got patched. And when I tried to pull it up, I was like, wait a minute, like I can't log in. It's like, okay, go to the email. Oh wait, I can't go to the email. It's gone. So yeah, Counter-Strike Original was on there. That might, let's see, Payday, the first one. Yeah, both Left 4 Deads. And there was a game called Fragmented. I have that on that account. So anyway, it's only a handful, but it got me, it was a wake-up call, you know, so. I mean, these are relatively replaceable games, but, okay, well, yeah, I know, I just thought I'd mention that so that if you're trying to contact me on Steam to that I can't access that account anymore. So, and I doubt I can get it back, but it's all right. It's not, you know, I'm getting more and more paranoid about this sort of thing anyway. I'm currently still locked out from my EA account, but I think that's a matter of like getting some updates for Windows. At least I think it is. We'll see. Even though in theory, you don't even need Windows 10 to log into EA app. I think they said you can do it on Windows 7, but I mean, I'm on 10 still, but it's an older build of 10. Yeah, so I guess maybe I'll pick up some of those games again when they're like super cheap again. Valve occasionally has some of those where they're just really cheap. So a lot of those games I mentioned. But yeah, I don't have them at the moment. Okay, and I guess I'll get to the questions. Okay, they have a question about my video thumbnails. For a long time, they were mostly just screenshots from the game. Then you added the name of the game as text once or twice, skipped a few thumbnails, and started doing it consistently. I'm just curious about that. Were you testing to see if you liked it, didn't, but then did again? The thumbnails are something, like even those old ones that are screenshots, I need to go back and create good ones for them. I just never get around. It's always just like low priority. Thumbnails are one of those things where my brain just interprets this as a very low priority, but in real world terms, it's maybe one of the most important things I should be doing. So like I used to just not even worry about it. And then I started doing them like more kind of collage artistically. But then I realized that when you have like real tiny thumbnails, like the extra effort I put into it, you couldn't really tell, and it was like less obvious. So then I tried to make them like kind of more blunt, kind of get your attention grabby ones. Like I'm thinking like Sin. You know, there's all sorts of things that could be showing in Sin, but I just instead just had a face of like the construction worker looking upset, and like bam, there's the thumbnail. And that's probably gonna do better on YouTube than putting like a lot more effort into it. I never know what to put. The thumbnails I'm very often making while the video is rendering and then later encoding. Like, okay, so the system's doing that, then I'm opening up Photoshop and trying to put something together from the footage. I started adding the text to it, I guess because that kind of, I should probably have something that shows like this is unique and this is Game Dungeon, like some sort of logo, but I've never gotten around to making one. But I have to kind of fight my instincts because my brain just wants to show like how good the game looks. You know, like I want to show like these big landscapes and stuff like that. But I'm fighting between that and just having like some big face on there and then just like some sort of branding to know that it's the title. So I'm always I'm always conflicted with what I should be doing with the thumbnails, or that that they'll get attention and I don't personally hate them. So I don't know. It's always a balancing act. And yeah, like with a lot of them, like with Sabotain, I took a few of the scenic screenshots and then I shrunk it down. And I tried to see, okay, well, if I was browsing on YouTube, which would get my attention the most? I try to decide between the two, or excuse me. Yeah. So yeah, I don't have a good system for it. But yeah, I should probably have better branding. And right now, just the sort of old kind of pixel art titles on there is, I guess that's helping. I don't know. I am going to go back and update older, for Freeman's Mind especially. At least I have kind of a format for that now. I should go back and update those. So yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult thing for me to figure out. For certain, there's yeah, it's a struggle between me wanting to make things that look nice versus what's probably going to get the most views. So yeah, feel free to make suggestions. Though the thing is, with getting the most views, I think you have to take into account your target audience too, because like I don't know, just popped in my head. Somebody like Mr. Beast is probably going to have a different demographic for who clicks on his videos than what I have. So yeah, maybe I should just copy whatever Civi 11's doing. I feel like Civi 11, for the target audience that I'm, just based on how I enjoy his videos, I have to imagine his target audience is going to have a lot of overlap between mine. So he's doing a better job at that than I am. So maybe I should just copy him. All right. Saying you know I mostly cover PC games, but do you have a favorite console? And if you do, what's your favorite game in that console's library? Well, I guess if I had to pick one, maybe the Super Nintendo. The Super Nintendo is one where I feel like at the time, and even looking back on it, it's just a home run aesthetically for so many games. Like it has great, it has just great pixel art in so many titles. It has a lot of great music across all of them. I mean, the vast majority of them. So if you were to just pick a title at random for the Super Nintendo, it may or may not be a good game, but I'm probably going to like how it looks and sounds, So and it's one of those where I feel like it was kind of getting at the peak of like kind of pixel art graphics. And then like the next generation, with Nintendo 64 and PlayStation, you had like really crude 3D graphics where sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I mean, even at the time, I thought that I remember thinking like, man, this 2D game kind of looks better than some of these 3D games. And um, but yeah, for my favorite title in the consoles library, I guess if I was just had to pick one, it might be Super Metroid. But I mean, a lot of people's favorites on there, like Super Castlevania, Donkey Kong Country, be way up there. Let's see, that was Contra 3 is pretty good too. I mean, there's a lot of great titles for it. I mean, there's good titles on almost any console, but it's like I feel like some of the older ones, they have kind of an identity from the titles that were on there. And then, I mean, nowadays it's almost, yeah, I think nowadays, I think there's like less exclusives than ever. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for that. I'm very happy that more titles can be on more platforms. But, you know, it does kind of distinguish the branding, I guess, when you have many that have like a certain kind of style to them. Okay. Will we see you playing The Legend of Kyrania Book 3? Possibly, though it's not like way up on my list or anything. I feel like 3 is the weakest of the 3. And whereas both 1 and 2, I think, are just fantastic. I mean, I can maybe talk about it eventually, but there's other games I'd rather get to first. Yeah, I used some of the music in 3 in one of the Civil Protection episodes. I think the Shadow one. I mean, it's all right. I guess 3 would give me some things to talk about because I'd have to look at it again. I feel like they were being a bit revisionist as to like how good or bad Malcolm is. Where I feel like the first one kind of established that Malcolm's not a good guy. I mean, now you can argue he's not maximum evil, but he does some mean stuff in 1. So, you know, I guess the best you could do is graduate to anti-hero, maybe. So I'm saying Betrayal at Krondor. Is that one turn-based combat? I'm not sure. I mean, it really takes a lot of mental effort for me to want to go through a turn-based combat game. It's just how I'm wired. Do you think GOG is tricking us into paying for abandonware? Those of older games like Realms of the Haunting are definitely not gaining money if you buy it from GOG, and they are bundled with DOSBox or other community patches that make the game better, but they were made by the community, not GOG. Well, I guess this one's kind of complicated. I guess the short answer would be no, and I think they're doing the best they can with as backwards as copyright law is. The longer answer would be, the first thing is abandonware, I'm thinking mostly in terms of US law, is not a legal term. Like pretty much if you're going under the strict definition of US law, all abandonware is illegal. Unless it pretty much all is, because if, let's say the rights holder, like the developer, the publisher says, okay, yes, we're making this freeware, well then it's not abandoned. Well, I guess maybe it could be, okay. The vast majority of abandonware is technically not legal. Now, I consider it not legal the same way running a red light at an intersection when there's at the middle of the night when nobody's around is technically illegal, you know, or running a stop sign. You know, I mean, I think it's a victimless crime there, but technically it is, you know, copyright infringement, distributing it. The thing is, nobody cares except the people who want to play the games, and they want it to happen. So that's kind of the framing you need to start off with for looking at this from a business perspective. That, I mean, let's say the abandonware offers a superior experience in some cases. Well, if you don't have the rights to it, then there's not really a business model for it. So, I mean, thankfully, most publishers don't care about what happens to the old games so that, the community can kind of harbor them. But it's already a mess starting out. I mean, even countries where you have the full right to like crack DRM and make backup copies and stuff. Well, abandonware, you're usually distributing it, and that can cross a line with copyright that isn't allowed. So I'm absolutely glad abandonware exists, but once again, the business, it doesn't really, there's not a model there that I can see as being more viable than what GOG is doing. Because what GOG does, as I understand it, is they try to hunt down the rights holders, and it can be anywhere. Sometimes it's a bank, sometimes it's an insurance company or something that owns the rights to that game. They get permission to resell it, and then they can make a profit from that. Now, you mentioned how the developers may not get any money from that. Well, that's hardly a problem unique to GOG. That's just the copyright system in general, because the developers were working for a publisher who owned the rights to it. And if their original contract didn't include like royalties or anything like that, then the publisher can do whatever they want with it. And the people who actually made the game get nothing from that beyond what that initial paycheck. I mean, if you want to look, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you if you say that's not how it should be. But the thing is, you have to upend so much of copyright law to try to remedy that. That again, that's nothing unique to GOG on that. I mean, you'll see that. I mean, even remakes, re-releases of games. You never know. I mean, there's no guarantee any of the people who worked in the original game are getting any money from a remake. You never know. I mean, or maybe some of them do, but some of them don't. Like, like maybe the voice actors do, but like the composer doesn't, or the programmers don't, or something like that. I mean, so it's easily a less than ideal system that the people responsible for actually making the game don't have a real say to what happens to it. And that's true for like all kinds of creative media. So yeah, I'm not necessarily defending it. I'm just saying that that's a mess you'd have to figure out. And actually, as a bit of a side, I think this is a minority of people, a small minority, but I've seen a few people against the Stop Killing Games initiative, like the European Citizens Initiative, because they feel it's not going far enough because we would allow companies to have DRM, and that the only way around this is to to outlaw DRM entirely. And I'm thinking, I think if you were to go down that route, you're gonna get so much more pushback, and or another one that they wanted this to enter public domain or something. It's like, yeah, that might. Again, I'm not gonna fight that if people want to do it, but the thing is, that's about 1,000 times harder than what we're doing, and this has felt like maximum difficulty every step of the way. Also, now some other aspects of it with GOG in particular, is that with many games, at least for the operating system at the time they re-release it, they usually go through and do fixes for it that you wouldn't necessarily have doing it through abandonware. Like with the Sabotain episode. If that was a GOG episode, then they probably would have fixed those broken quests that were the result of the operating system or some update. Actually, something I left out of the episode, I originally didn't run it with XP compatibility mode, and I made it a ways into the game, I think until I got to the military academy, and then the game would just crash right after a cutscene. And then I ran it again, and then it would work for a while, and then it crashed later on after a cutscene. And then I went through and added XP compatibility mode, and that fixed it. Well, if it was a GOG release, they would probably fix that from the get-go before the customer even played it, and it would be a better experience. I mean, not always, but I'd say more often than not. Like like with Trick Style, that was the example I had where, you know, if you have the original disc of Trick Style, you can get it running at a higher resolution than what you could if, well, actually I haven't checked. Well, at the time I had the episode with the GOG copy. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, maybe they updated it, maybe not. But usually it's a better experience with the GOG copy. Now you mentioned with community patches that if that's included, well, if that's included, GOG got permission. Like they almost certainly got permission one way or the other. Either they probably reached out to the people who made the patch and got permission, or else the patch itself was released under some sort of Creative Commons license where you're allowed to redistribute it as long as you accredit the original people who worked on it, that sort of thing. So, no, I don't think they're tricking people. I think it's the system. Look, the way we handle copyright law is so incredibly hostile towards game preservation as it is. And I think GOG is just kind of navigating through the cracks around that the best they can. And they're having trouble, obviously, if they had to lay off a lot of people in December. So, what? Somebody's asking, I plan to do Clive Barker's Undying. Maybe. I should watch... I feel like I need to watch Civi 11's coverage of it to see if I'd be adding stuff that he wouldn't, you know, like, because I felt like with Sin's, like with Sin, my take on it, I was looking at very different things than he was. So I figured, our episodes are kind of complementary, but I don't want to just be copying everything off of that. But that's definitely a game I could have a lot to say about. Okay, so... yeah, I think GOG is about as good as you can get for old games and still have it be legal and accessible at a sane price. You know, because for some of these, you could hunt down the original physical copy and buy it from a secondhand dealer that who knows what the price would be. But, and yeah, okay, so I'll move on. Are there any games for the PC in your childhood that you don't cover on Game Dungeon? Largely if they're being targeted for a younger demographic, like kids, such as the point-and-click humongous entertainment games. I don't know which ones those are. Sam & Max, etc. Well, I'd argue Sam & Max Hit the Road isn't necessarily targeted at children. I mean, it's kind of... it's toned down from the comic some, but I mean, I could see adults playing that one for sure, and there's going to be jokes, I think, kids aren't going to get in Sam & Max. Yeah, like the original comic of Sam & Max is definitely not like targeted at children. It's definitely for, like, I'd say teens at least, or an adult audience. But yeah, for kids games that I don't cover on Game Dungeon, well, I might cover more. I mean, I covered, what was it, Captain Zap, you know, on the... let's see, one episode, Potty Pigeon. That was another one I played as a kid. I do intend to get to more Commodore 64 games, but I figure I owe people the follow-up episode first. After that, I kind of want to have like some shorter episodes after that. Let's see. But I mean, if there's something to talk about, I absolutely intend to have like a couple more games I've played as a kid that I feel like are kind of interesting revisiting as an adult. For ones I played as a kid, they're like actual kids games. I mean, maybe. I mean, I guess not really. I think there was like some Disney game I played where on Commodore 64 that involved. I have vague memories of it, but I remember Donald Duck like moving a bunch of watermelons. I know if I can find something interesting to say about it, sure, I can cover. I mean, one game I haven't covered that I don't really have plans to is maybe Commander Keen. I liked that as a kid. I mean, I could cover it. I'm just not sure what I'd say, you know, that would appeal to like a modern audience. So that's what it comes down to. It's like, how interesting is the game to talk about in itself? And also, do I have things that this is just like making my brain reel with things I want to say about it? So, if you were the evil villain in an action movie, how would you want your character to be killed at the end? Well, I mean, it's a classic, but an easy answer is just like the falling from a great height while they're going like, ah, like, like I was thinking of like the RoboCop death scene, or they've done that in a lot of movies. Yeah, like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, like then the Nazi who's like falling like over the, yeah, he's like grabbing onto the tank, screaming as it falls over the cliff. What actually? Okay, just was mentioning Die Hard. Yeah, exactly. Die Hard, GoldenEye. Yeah, they've done that in a lot of movies. It's a classic, but there's a reason it's a classic. It's a very solid way to kill off your villain. Just having them, plummet as the camera's like looking straight down, they're screaming like, it's a good way to go for your villain. Yeah, it got me thinking actually, it got me thinking Indiana Jones in general. I realized they have a pretty good reputation for how they kill off the villains. Because Raiders of the Lost Ark, I mean, they melt the one guy, the other guy's head explodes, and I forget what happens to the other one. But and the troops are getting like their eyes and brains burned out. Yeah, I don't know if they ever top that, but let's see, in Last Crusade, I get, yeah, he's plummeting to his death and then gets torn apart by the alligators. I mean, yeah, Temple of Doom. Yeah, I get Last Crusade. Well, yeah, and then Last Crusade, like the higher up villain at the end has the rapid aging from the Grail. That was pretty awesome. I mean, and now that I think about it, what Fate of Atlantis, they have, yeah, I think they fall into lava, and then one of them, yeah, I think it depends on your choices which ending you get, but yeah, one of them like basically turns into a mutant and like completely freaks out and suicides on that. What the? Yeah, in the end, I don't know about the new one with the Great Circle, but there were some other indie games. So yeah, I realized the Indiana. I haven't seen Indiana Jones movies past Last Crusade because so many people say it's not good. But yeah, they have a good reputation for that. Another one I like is getting dragged down by your minions. But by the like I'm drawing a blank where I've seen this. I mean, I feel like I've seen it somewhere else, but like this isn't it exactly, but like in Day of the Dead, they have the one guy just getting like overrun by the zombies where they're just all completely grabbing him. But what doesn't the end of Mortal Kombat have? I guess I forgot now. Does Shang Tsung kind of explode from like all the souls he has? But yeah, like if they're just kind of like dragged down into hell or something, or just like a bunch of hands just kind of grabbing the villain. That's another great way to do it. I'm drawing a blank on which others do that, but yeah, one of those. But yeah, if I had to just choose quick, just villain. Oh yeah, that was it. I skipped a lot of chunks because it's definitely for kids, but the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie. Yeah. Spoiler for that if you care about that. But they have Robotnik falling off a giant robot. It was like the best part of the movie, and he's just shouting like "later, haters" as he's plummeting to his alleged death, and it was just like that. That was just perfect the way they ended that. So yeah. Oh yeah, the Tim Burton Batman had another plummet to their death kind of. That's been used in a bunch of movies, but again, there's a reason because it's a very satisfying way of defeating the villain, you know. Okay, more questions. Have you played a point-and-click game called Limbo of the Lost? The game was removed from official sale almost immediately after it launched, as almost a third of the game's assets were stolen from games like Oblivion and Thief. No, I haven't. I've heard of it, though, and I've heard it's not very good also. That's one of those where, you know, other that's one of those where it's like it's so bad it's kind of famous, and a lot of people have covered it. So I'm not sure if me bandwagoning onto that would really add much. So I try to I try to pick in general. I try to pick games either not a lot of people have heard of, like Sabotain, or ones where my thoughts on it are probably going to deviate from whatever most other people are saying, and at least in several areas, you know. Yeah, somebody's mentioned Mandalore Gaming covered it pretty thoroughly. So it's like I don't know if that. I mean, if I really want to talk about a game, I'll do it. But I'm not going. I'm not. I don't have like a burning desire to cover bad games. It's. I kind of want, like on Game Dungeon. Like I kind of want to, like, fascinating games is what I kind of want to cover. If I mean, not always, but what ones were the, like a Sabotain. I mean, it just kept giving me this feeling like this, like those environments just feel so like top tier for what, or close to it for what you could expect from 2004. And it was another thing that was I left out is that, you know, you can tell they cut a lot of corners, but it feels very even. Like like a lot. I've seen plenty of games like with Revenant or Fahrenheit that you can tell they had to cut stuff out at the end and just rush this to production. Whereas no, if the quality feels kind of equal in the game from beginning to end in Sabotain, and that's kind of rare for games that feel like they ran out of resources. So, and we're getting a whoop whoop from the audience. So maybe we have a juggalo in the chat. there's so sure. And that reminds me of the game Press X. Yeah, if you want a juggalo appearing in games, play Press X to not die. They have an appearance there. Let's see. So yeah, I haven't played Limbo of the Lost, and I'm not really an Emmy. I don't have a burning desire to, but I kind of like games that have like some redeeming values to them. You know, what are some video games you would love if they were from a different genre or had better gameplay? Uh, there's a lot. I wrote down just some more. Well, I mean, in general, it's not that the gameplay's bad. It's just that it's not for me. But one common one is games with turn-based combat. So I put down, I wrote down XCOM, Darkest Dungeon, BattleTech, the later Divinity games. I've played Divine Divinity. That one was okay, but I haven't played like Divinity Original Sin. Stuff like Baldur's Gate 3, or there's another one. Although I think somebody got either they have a prototype mod out, or else they're working on a mod to have real-time combat. So if that ever gets fully polished, I'll probably play Baldur's Gate 3 eventually. Some others to like a lesser extent. I would say Dark Souls and Dark Souls-ish games, because I feel like it's like I tend to be on board with almost all those games thematically. It's just that the combat always feels more like a slog and more punitive than what I personally enjoy. Or it's not just the combat. That's kind of simplifying it. It's the boss fights especially, because I feel like the boss fight, I like bosses where you have a chance of defeating the boss in the first go. And it feels like a whole lot of the From Software or Dark Souls knockoff bosses aren't like that. No, it's like you're going to need to learn the pattern. Then you're going to need to learn the second phase pattern. And then you're going to maybe learn some other trick or something like that. So I don't, because I feel like if it was just I don't know if I've even seen that at games. Like, I feel like if it was just like the slow and more deliberate combat like you have in Dark Souls games, I might actually be okay with that. It's just that I know at the end of that road is gonna be some boss that I'm just gonna die to over and over again. And that kind of, yeah, they're saying a lot of trial and error. I'm not a huge fan of trial and error with games. That's not my kind of gameplay. I, it doesn't mean that you can't have any, but it means that I like having a fair chance to basically handle any challenge the first time. Doesn't mean you will. I mean it, but it means that you're not going to have many like kind of sucker punch experiences or yeah, I don't know. Well, sucker punch stuff is okay if it's funny, I guess, and there's not like a huge penalty for it. Or again, this doesn't mean Dark Souls is a bad game. It's just that like for my taste, yeah, like I said before, like what would make Souls like games, yeah, there's they could do one of two things to make me play it and not have it feel like a chore. They could either one balance the game so that enemies don't respawn once you kill them. So you know you're just progressing. You know, if you respawn, the enemies aren't there to kill you again. That's one option. The other option is just let you save kind of anywhere. You know, like a lot of games. Now, a lot of games, I'm actually fine with having checkpoints, especially scary ones. I think those are the ones that benefit the most of not being able to save anywhere. But if I could have one of those things in Souls-like games, then I think it would be the balance for me would be all right. But without them, it's just it can feel like a chore, and I don't really like it that much. Um, and I guess another one. This is one where it's like it's almost there. Like I the Total War Warhammer games, or I'm completely on board thematically. I like a lot of it, but then it just feels like it escalates to a level of complexity that I don't know. It's like I don't want to. I almost don't want to deal with this many variables for my fights and like long term battle strategy and stuff like that. But I don't know. Maybe I just need to throw more time at it. But it's like I almost like it, but then it keeps going to a place where I don't quite like it. So those are some off the top of my head, but there's all kinds of good or promising games out there that I'd like if it wasn't for like X, Y, and Z. And again, they're not necessarily bad games either. So, any interest in Wii games? Do you own a Wii remote to use the Dolphin emulator? I do not have a Wii remote. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely. Let's see, what are the top Wii games? I mean, there's gonna be games I'm interested in on pretty much any platform. Let's see, Wii top games. Again, this isn't. I'm sure there's. I just figure if you look at the top, then the best ones are gonna come up. Okay. Well, I do want to play Zelda Twilight Princess. That's one I'm interested in. This is one where I'm interested in trying it. I don't know if I'll like it or not. But Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, I'm not huge on 3D platforming, but usually Mario tends to be kind of refined for like general audience to a large degree. Donkey Kong Country Returns, that looks like it'll be up my alley. I think I tried some new Super Mario Brothers, but wasn't really getting into it. Let's see. So some of these are already on other platforms. I mean, maybe the Wii Mario Kart. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, there might be some others, but for interest, but I will say I have a actually, I ended up playing Sonic Colors on the Wii because the color was better than the PC version. So, um, let's see, is what I have an extra interest in Dolphin in particular, the Dolphin emulator in particular, because there was a fork of it, Dolphin VR, which for many games, it's basically the best VR you can imagine for it being a hack. You know, you basically would have to have like a native port or adaptation for the VR to be better than what that does. Because the Wii emulator itself supports a stereoscopic rendering mode, but for whatever reason, the depth just seemed better on Dolphin VR. So I've actually been replaying off and on some of Blood Omen 2. That's a game I wanted to, I might check, let's see, that's for GameCube, but just because I'm playing it in VR. And again, that's not an ideal title for it because of the camera controls, but I'm getting used to it somewhat just because I wanted to see that world in real 3D. There's other old games of that era too. Well, actually, I tried some of Sonic Heroes on the GameCube that way. And yeah, it's impressive. Yeah, I think I mentioned that in a previous one where how like going up one of the 360 ramps actually gave me a bit of vertigo. That was impressive. I guess Shadow Man is another one I wouldn't mind seeing in 3D. These are games I played on PC. Did they have Blood Rain on GameCube? That might be another one to check out. But yeah, it would, yeah, I mean, I have an interest. I mean, I like games in general, so there's going to be titles, again, on any console also that I'm interested in. The main reason I haven't played them is just because I didn't have the console. But with emulation coming, then that's great. It's like a rejuvenation of it. Because you can play it almost, no one who ever, well, maybe there's a fringe case out there. No one who ever had a GameCube or Wii was playing those exact games in VR at the time, whereas now you can, and that's just incredible. So it's like you can experience that game on a deeper level than maybe even the developers could. So I'm always interested in that sort of thing if they have neat environments. Okay, from the chat, there's if I have opinion on Need for Speed Underground duology games. I actually haven't played the Need for Speed Underground games, so those are the ones I should get to. I tend to be less interested in the racing games that are all just like completely in the city, because like I like the variety of environments. So ones where they have some you're in the city, some you're in the countryside or exotic places. Those tend to be my favorite, but I might play them eventually. And I haven't played One Shot, I don't think. Let's see. The name sounds familiar. Oh, okay. I played a little bit of that one, but then I was probably getting stuck on something stupid. So yeah, I should maybe come back to that one because a lot of people have had good things to say about it. So I should take another crack at it. Okay. Have you had a chance to look into the Big Screen Beyond 2? It seems like one of the most cutting-edge VR headsets being released this year. The only downside for you specifically is if you prefer a very large field of view. I'm curious what your opinion of it is. Well, I mean, I don't have the budget to be trying all of these, but yeah, I have been following VR. As I understand it, for higher end VR for the consumer, because there's always like these specialty stuff. For like the three in the running now are the Big Screen Beyond 2, the Mega Nex, and the Pimax Crystal Super. And I'll be blunt, I'm pretty much ready to pull the trigger on the Pimax Crystal Super. It's pricey, but I've been waiting on this for years and years and years. It's like I still have the Samsung Odyssey Plus here, and my main complaints about it are that the resolution could be higher, especially for things in the distance, and I want a bigger field of view. And I think the only one that has like a clear, hands down bigger field of view prior to this generation was like the Valve Index. And that's how many years old now? Field of view has just stayed frozen on it until the Pimax. And it sounds like for field of view and resolution, the Pimax Crystal Super demolishes both of those categories. Yeah, like you mentioned Big Screen Beyond 2, the Pimax Crystal Super has double the resolution of that. Because if I'm not mixing them up, I think Big Screen, if I'm not mixing them up, I think Big Screen Beyond 2 is 2560 by 2560 per eye, and the Crystal Super has 3840 by 3840 per eye. That said, I'm sure I'd be happy with any of those. In fact, I'll probably, if I get it, I have no illusions about being able to run like the most demanding games at native resolution. I have to either downsample it or run old stuff at native. Yeah, like there's a Doom engine port, like I think it's like GZ Doom for VR. I'm pretty sure I could probably run that at native resolution on that thing on my card, but I think it's going to take me to the promised land, because the analogy I've heard before is from people using the older Pimax, which had other problems and issues with it, is that it's like regular VR is like looking through binoculars, and with the Pimax, it's like looking through a scuba mask. So for me personally, I think that's what's really going to draw me into the games. So I'm ready to take the plunge on it. And again, it's pricey, but it's the sort of thing I want to use years and years and years on. So, I mean, geez, I don't remember how long I've been using the Odyssey Plus. It's probably at least 5 years, maybe 6 or something like that. So, yeah, I've been looking for. Except I didn't want to just have that's the thing. I've been waiting for a solid upgrade and not a side grade. And FOV was just staying frozen almost. Now, for what I've heard from the Big Screen Beyond 2, the big things that has going for it over the Pimax are it has OLED panels, which I'm still a little paranoid if those might get burnt in, but probably less so for VR, because you're going to have constantly moving images. Whereas like a desktop monitor could have like your risk of having like images burned in was probably higher, I would think. But it does mean you're going to have like better blacks, and maybe colors and that sort of thing. Though I've heard the color's good on the Super. And the other is it's much more lightweight. And I think the price is lower too. So, yeah, I've heard the picture quality is excellent on Big Screen Beyond 2, but for what I care about, I'm probably gonna go in on the Pimax, and then I'll be in the promised land. I swear I can't. I mentioned in one of the videos. I'm really not joking that I identify so much with the villain from Star Trek Generations, who's just trying to get back to the Nexus. He's a reluctant villain in the movie. He doesn't want to be doing all this villainous stuff, but that's the only way he can get back to the Nexus. But now it sounds like I don't have to destroy a star system to do it. I can just get the right VR headset. So all the better for all involved. Let's see. Have you seen the newly revealed road trip mode for American Truck Simulator, where you'll be able to drive different kinds of vehicles without any objectives? Based on what you were saying in the reveal, it sounds like it could be perfect for scratching the same itch as the crew, but on a larger, more detailed map. 100%. And I've been holding off on both Euro Truck Simulator 2 and American Truck Simulator, because those do natively support VR. I'm thinking I'll probably get like the full experience by doing them in VR. That said, I think there's already so many mods out for those that you could I think you already could have just like the equivalent of like kind of a road trip experience with enough mods. In fact, I was checking, I think there's even ones that kind of give you a free camera mode. Like, so say you were driving by and you pass by some farm that looks cool or something. I think you might be able to do a mod so that you could do the equivalent of getting out of the truck and going and looking around. So, oh yeah, for sure I've been holding off on playing those because I think I'll get the full experience playing it with VR. And I was playing the mod it from the get-go, because I don't care about the authenticity of it being a truck sim. I just want to like see the continent, you know? So I probably would get mods to make it a little more arcadey so I don't have to, so they're not gonna ride me for running a red light or, you know, merging it the wrong way or stuff like that. Or, you know, there's probably lots of intricacies to driving tractor trailers I'm not aware of. In fact, I'm sure there is. Yeah. There's a scene in a Bill Murray movie like that where he pretends to be a rig driver, and then you see him get into the cab, and like the camera slowly pans over all the controls for controlling the truck that you could tell he's in over his head on it. So I'll see if I can, if it's on YouTube, I'll try and have a link to that. But yeah, no, that's way up there for games I want to try in VR. There's plenty of games I've been putting off because I want to have like the full experience of them, and not the reason I've been playing more of, like, again, like I mentioned, like GameCube games on in VR is because the GameCube was meant to be rendered at a 4:3 aspect ratio. And while you can render those in widescreen using Dolphin, unless they have like a lot of patches or something, you're going to get a lot of occlusion culling. So you're going to see things disappear and pop in on the sides like crazy. So the diminished FOV on my VR headset, I'm not really missing out much by playing it on that versus if I had a wider field of view. So I'm holding out for the best experience. Somebody's saying, would you want to mod out the traffic? Keep it or no preference? Oh, no, I'd want the traffic. I'd want it feeling alive, you know, the world. Because if you mod out all the traffic, then the world, it feels kind of like a ghost world. And, well, that can be cool for some scenarios. It feels kind of like isolating in others, where if the world feels more alive, then I like that feeling, you know? But, yeah, let's see. Okay. Yeah. Which Wallace and Gromit film is your favorite? Ah, I guess it'd probably be, was the one with the penguin, the wrong trousers. That was probably the, yeah. Yeah, the first one's A Grand Day Out. Then it's A Close Shave, which is also very good. And then I guess the wrong trousers. But thoughts on AI generated frames and NVIDIA GPUs and AI and gaming sphere as a whole? Do you see it more as a net positive or negative? That's a good question. I think I actually have been experimenting with some of that for games I can't get 60 frames per second on. I had to, there was some stuff I had to figure out first. Yeah, or actually for game, actually that might be an interesting experiment to try that on, what was it? Death Trap Dungeon, since that game's frame locked to 16 frames a second. It would get soupy though at that low. But there's other games like Need for Speed Rivals. That game's frame capped at 30 frames per second, and if you can uncap it to 60, but then that doubles the physics and the speed of everything. So it's kind of like, what's the point? So it might be ideal for that. I think the way I look at it is like duct tape. Like, I think the more desperate you are to have a smooth frame rate, the more it's worth it. You know, so if you're struggling to get to like VSync levels or something like that, and you don't mind some visual garbage in there, then it can be worth it. But I think it's terrible to have as a standard. I feel like I look at it kind of like overclocking, or like we mentioned, driving on a spare tire. You know, I don't think it's an optimal experience, because if you're because you can see areas where it screws up or it just looks wrong and it's kind of visually distracting. But if you have a reason you really want a higher frame rate and you can live with some visual garbage, then I think it's great to have as an option, you know? But I think I if you have a new game coming out and it can't run on like modern hardware without that, then I don't like that because it's we're reaching too high, and then it gives people with like lower specs nowhere to go. Then if it's like expecting that, so oh yeah, people are talking about delay. See, the kind of games I was talking about, you don't need like Cobra fast reflexes on. Yeah, obviously, if you're doing like competitive gaming stuff, yeah, you wouldn't want that. I would think you'd probably want to turn down your graphics to the lowest settings, highest resolution you could have for distance shots or something like that. Yeah, you wouldn't want this for like really competitive gaming because yeah, it will introduce delay and it feels kind of soupy, but yeah. So I think it's a worthy tool, a bad standard. That's the best way to look at it. Someone's asking if I ever beat Death Trap Dungeon or did the T-Rex room best you. That T-Rex room got us, or got me. Apparently, I just needed to bomb even more. So, let's see. Okay, they're talking about the AI risk, the chart I had on the AI risks. And then something I don't see being addressed are the risks that AI art can pose. What is your stance on AI being used to make original in quotes here, drawings, 3D models, whole games, or even writing and acting, especially on the caveat that they're trained by human art? Do you see a world where all artistic expression is replaced by AI, or do you believe the tech will never get there or won't get there anytime soon? Yeah, well, okay, I guess if we're talking about risks, I mean, I don't think there's any risks from AI art that weren't already covered in that chart. I think the biggest risk from AI art are, well, I guess kind of two things. One is taking away more jobs, which our system isn't really designed for. And that's hardly unique to artists or AI. I mean, that's what a lot of automation did. Or, I mean, computers in general, really. I guess the thing is, computers open up a lot of new jobs. I think AI is more strictly reductive. Now, we may not have to worry as much about that sort of thing because I think McDonald's backpedaled from using AI to take people's orders because it wasn't reliable enough. And I'm thinking, man, that's like that's one of the lowest standards you're gonna have is just getting your menu right, especially for McDonald's, which gets orders wrong all the time. So if the AI can't handle that, then there's a lot of jobs that can't handle it. However, AI is good for things where you need pattern recognition, but you don't need 100% accuracy or 99%. Like if it's like 95% accurate and that's fine, then I think AI has a lot more use. But that's probably why we still don't see we don't see like self-driving cars taking over because 95% good enough isn't good enough, for an accident, that sort of thing. But back to art. So yeah, that's the one risk. It is taking jobs, but that's pressure on all kinds of industries, where they're trying to take away jobs. And really, in theory, having less jobs that need to be done is great because that opens up more free time. I mean, I would love for the standard to be less hours for everybody instead of like the 40 plus work week. But in reality, that just means that more people just don't have a job or have to take on multiple jobs and things get just kind of more desperate and stressed and overworked for everyone. So AI art is part of that, but it's hardly the only thing like that. Yeah, I guess the other risk is, yeah, is that it just kind of fills the internet with more crap, I guess. But I mean, I kind of put that in the same category as like being bombarded by ads if you're like browsing the internet, or what was another? Geez, I had another example, but basically you're looking at like a lot of like cheap crap that kind of makes things uglier. But I mean, that's not really a risk. It's just kind of an erosion of aesthetics, I guess. You know. But yeah, now for the other aspects, do you see a world where all artistic expression is replaced by AI? No, I don't. However, it could be that you have more and more companies deciding, well, AI is good enough. AI is good enough, and that just gets kind of shoved down your throat everywhere, and then like you almost have to go out of your way to get like actual original art. And so it's like I don't think for like the vast majority of things, I think the AI art isn't going to beat human art on quality. But if everything's like really kind of commercialized, and that's the only point is just for this to sell some ad or something, then it might kind of take over more. I mean, like with the movie, I hope to use AI for kind of like animation assistance. So if like we have like the basic animation but it doesn't look right, it's like, okay, well, can we use AI to kind of get the person to bend forward more and that looks all right? I might do that, because the thing is, I'm not going to be able to afford to be able to do better. And if I'm doing it manually, it's almost certainly going to look worse. And then I'm going to be exercising a lot of quality control. If the AI sends me into the uncanny valley range, I'm not going to be happy with that at all. But I don't have any intention to use AI for like the textures or the models, really. Um, but for animation assistance, I might. But um, the oh yeah, for somebody, oh yeah, somebody saying they're running late. I screwed up and gave on half the post I gave one time, and half the post I gave another. I wasn't syncing it up in my head, so there might be latecomers. The status of petition is um like one. I'm pushing it back like one more month before I call it dead. There's one play left, so for the person asking. Um, but yeah, I mean, AI is going to erode jobs, and it is going to help in very specific areas, like with medicine, like with medical research. I think is one of the best areas for it. Or I mentioned before, and perhaps in farming, with like differentiating weeds versus crops, that sort of thing. Um, what? But yeah, I wouldn't. Unfortunately, you might see more like with. It's a possibility, and I think it'll make things kind of poorer aesthetically. But you might see analogy to like you know how like before the Industrial Revolution, like almost everything was kind of handcrafted. So you kind of had a lot more things having like a style to them. Just even things like cups or chairs or things like that. But once you had like mass industrial revolution and mass production, there's a lot less of that because it made more, in just in a practical sense, it made more sense to just have like, you know, this one model hundreds of times faster than what we can do doing it handcrafted, that sort of thing. And you might see that for kind of commercial art a lot more. And yeah, I think that sucks. I don't like it, but I think AI does have usage, but just generating pictures, they always have like this weird uncanny valley effect for me, or they very often do, and I don't like that. So I guess there are cases where they can fool me though. So I mean, there is the argument that when it's being trained by human art, the companies doing that, I think they've almost all of them have been just kind of doing it illegally. And since we're kind of in an era of transition where laws don't matter so much as long as you're rich and powerful, then I guess they get away with it. But even if they did everything above board and paid every single artist to get the rights to use their stuff, you would end up in the same place, just slower and more expensive. So yeah, it's yeah. Well, what we mentioned earlier, the AI generated frames. That's something where I don't it it's not as high quality, but I do think it's a useful tool, for stuff like that. But if you're actually that's really how I look at AI is like it's best as a tool. But if you're using it to like generate the source creative stuff, I'm largely not impressed about that. The more I see of it, so it kind of makes me appreciate more like authentic art, that sort of thing. Okay. In episode 55, Freeman complains about Lambda complex intercom dimensional contamination announcements, extending to a rant how aliens are three-dimensional from deep space, which is not another dimension. This, however, contrasts with his comments in a previous segment of the series, episode 37, where he regains his memory after shooting a bull squid, remembering the resonance cascade and how beings from another dimension started teleporting, like there was a free t-shirt giveaway. Could you explain this discrepancy? Thank you. Well, I probably forgot, but even under canon for Freeman, he could use it more casually when he wants to. Like that's something people can do. In some contexts that it's supposed to be official, but in others it's just more casual. Like with AI, like artificial intelligence, it's not really artificial intelligence. It's like kind of machine learning code. This isn't HAL, was it 9,000? But I'm using AI casually. But if somebody wants to get specific about it, then that comes up a lot with the campaign. Like we talk about game ownership. Literally, we're not talking about full game ownership. We're talking about the right to continue to keep and be able to run a game you have paid for. That is separate, if we're being technical, that is separate from game ownership. So, yeah, I think he was using it casually. If they were doing it on the intercom, then he was probably seeing it as like a more official thing. Whereas if it's like in blurry memories, then he's using it more casually, I guess. So, there's other examples like that. Like, doesn't the Linux community like to jump on people if they just call a desktop like a Linux distro and instead of like new Linux, that's an example of the same sort of mentality, My mistakes, even minor ones, emotionally haunt me. Bad interactions with people, bad financial decisions, missed opportunities. They randomly pop into my mind even decades later and they still frustrate me and ruin my mood. Does that happen to you too? What's your method for getting over it? I mean, yeah, a little bit, but it's more like, like, especially as I'm getting older, I kind of look at life more and more like a survival game. And it's, if you make mistakes in something like DayZ, but you're still alive, good job. You're doing good. Like, if it's like you're probably holding yourself to standards. Well, no, you are holding yourself to standards that aren't even possible because if they're in the past now. So it's like, well, we made them. Yeah. So you need to look at things. You're playing life in hardcore mode. You don't get to do it over. So if you made a mistake, oh well, we made a mistake. Now we just have to deal with the consequences of that. And because it's like there's not an alternative. So I kind of look at things a lot like that. It's like, yeah, I screwed up on that. Oh well, I'm here now. So I kind of Well, I look at that because I look at it that way because you can't undo the past, so you can just, it almost doesn't matter how you got to where you are. It's like you're here where you are now. So you just try to figure out your best to navigate it from that situation. Uh, uh, yeah. Or like, I mean, I'm making game analogies, but like, yeah, like with roguelikes, some some runs are a lot worse than others, and you're just thinking, well, can we salvage this? I don't know. I guess we're just going to try, and for the, mistakes, you're acting under the assumption that you would have, of course, you would have done better if you had gone back in time, but maybe you couldn't have done better under the exact variables you were under at that moment. So it's, you know, and then sometimes mistakes lead you to weird places. Like, I mean, I thought I made a mistake, like looking back on it. I mentioned with the machinima, going to work for them because then I learned that, no, because I thought that, oh, I was missing out on these opportunities to have more resources to make better videos. But I learned that no, that wasn't the case. That was all basically a front. But I never would have known that had I not done it. And then when I left, I was on a much lower rate than I was before from YouTube before I went there. However, by doing that, I also had that protection added to my contract when I did leave. And then when they tried to screw me later, that protection in my contract ended up being invaluable. So through a series of mistakes that led to a better outcome, maybe in the long term, than if I had just played it safe with the original plan, with like never doing things. So yeah, it's not always obvious what's a mistake. I mean, some things are, some things they're not how you think. But yeah, the overall message I would get is just like, you know, you're, yeah, treat it more like you're in hardcore mode and this is like day Z and you're just, if you haven't been shot from some sniper and you found food, then you're doing well, so. Yeah, you have to change your standards here. Have you played or plan to do a game dungeon on the third birthday? That's the 3 game in the Parasite Eve trilogy. If not, you should check out at least the soundtrack as the video game soundtrack, as I'll like it. I intend to play the. I didn't realize it was a trilogy. I only knew there was 2. I don't plan to play those because we come back to my old nemesis again of turn-based combat. But last year I did watch a playthrough of the first one. And yeah, the soundtrack is great. There's definitely tracks I want to get from that. There was also some pretty impressive visuals for the time where they were doing some tricks on the PlayStation to make it look better. I noticed. I was like, because they added like motion blur built into the textures when they're like moving by, and then they have like miniature models of the city. So yeah, they were doing a lot. It was definitely like upper end graphics of the PlayStation, in my opinion. Overall, the story was just kind of. It's like some of it felt like more fleshed out, and then some of it just felt like just almost random, and I don't really know where they're going with it. And I don't know. It just it's sort of like kind of it sort of just kind of fell apart to me in terms of the story. But I was kind of looking at it as like an excuse to have like you know crazy evil looking monsters and mutants in a modern setting. So kind of. By that standard, I prefer Resident Evil, but it's interesting. I'll probably watch a playthrough. Well, now there's a third one. I'll probably watch a playthrough of the second one for sure. Maybe the third one. And yeah, the soundtrack's good. It definitely had music that holds up for sure. This is one. Gee, okay, Chad, you can answer this one. They're saying they really liked the episode and the big world that was in the Sabotain video, and would like to play it for that world because they can't really seem to find older games that have that their old PC can run. Are there any other older games you can recommend that have a big cyberpunk world to them? Well, from what little I played of it, Omicron, the Nomad Soul, but that one's going to be harder to approach than Sabotain from what I played of it. Yeah, that's the good news. If you're just there for the world, you can go to almost all the areas from the get-go in the game. So you don't even have to play through the storyline. You can just wander around from the start. Yeah, the chat. Well, okay, big cyber. Well, I mean, I showed Quarantine. That I think that counts. Maybe not in the way that you think. Yeah, and then there was a sequel, Road Warrior. Or some like big cyberpunk worlds from old games. Okay, so I was saying I Divine Cybermancy. I only played a little bit of that. I don't know how like big open world that is. Yeah, there was another one like it wasn't very good. I think it was like called Revolution. I don't think it's like a big open world, but creates like kind of a big cyberpunk world. It's linear, but there are certainly levels that have a big, impressive open world. I mentioned Sabotain, Judge Dredd versus Death. The levels are big in that. For the time, they do a pretty decent job of kind of portraying a cyberpunk world. I mean, it's linear, but they're big levels in that. What's another one? Old cyberpunk worlds. Okay, somebody's saying Tech War, which I still need to play. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. I have to think. Yeah, because that's why I was surprised Sabotain went under my radar because I kind of like that thing too. Big cyberpunk worlds. But so I'm saying Perfect Dark. Is Perfect Dark that cyberpunk though? I thought from what I've seen of Perfect Dark, it kind of looked more like a contemporary spy setting, like lots of corridors, that sort of thing. So I'm saying, how on earth do I find these obscure games? Well, for that one, those from abandonware browsing. But yeah, I guess maybe the chat will have some more. But well, okay, for games that you can run and that are, I think, reasonably big world. The Shadowrun has several games. Those aren't that old, but they're. I mean, your system should be able to run them. Let's see. Satellite Rain was kind of demanding at the time, but it might be more runnable now. That's kind of an isometric view. Okay. Which character from the Mario universe resonates with you the most? Also, do you plan on playing RoboCop Rogue City anytime soon? Well, to the latter, probably not anytime soon, just because it's going to be demanding, and I just assume new games are late betas. Like I think there was what was it? Warhammer Rogue Trader. They had an announcement a few months back. I think it was like a year or two after release that they fixed like this big bug to the game that affected like a lot of the gameplay. I'm thinking like, geez, it's just the industry has trained me to just wait on games. I mean, and for which character from Mario universe? I guess for strictly from Mario, maybe I guess my favorite character would probably be Wario. I like his blunt approach to yeah, he's like a villain turned anti-hero. He's very Wario Wario is not a saint, and he doesn't pretend to be one. And he's very. I like his. He's very blunt and direct for what he wants. I like that about him. I guess it doesn't count as Mario, but I guess if you counted it, Kirby might be. I like Kirby because he's like nice and cheerful, but he's maybe an alien. He just eats everything and just as a cheerful demeanor and like it's almost like there's a sinister side to him, except he doesn't even care. He's just completely indifferent and just stays cheerful about things. So Kirby's, yeah, and like the sort of D&D alignment, Kirby is like a really cheerful, like chaotic neutral. His character alignment that I appreciate, you know. Okay, I'll browse. The submitted questions don't have many votes now, so I'll just kind of go back and forth. Okay, somebody's recommending Drova. I don't know about that. How do you feel when you run old games in the now? Oh, well, it just depends entirely on the game, like of how I feel about it. It's, I mean, some hold up, some don't. I find what I found actually is even when I'm younger, like you know how you can forget all kinds of details about things, but you can kind of remember emotionally how you felt about something. What I've found is that tends to be extremely consistent from when I was a kid versus now. Because I'll remember thinking, I remember liking the premise of this, but something about this I didn't like. And then I'll go and play it. It's like, oh yeah, I see now. Damn it, you know. I remember thinking like, wow, that was pretty awesome. And then I go and play it. It's like, oh yeah, that I can see that was pretty neat. But I kind of like my memory to fade some though, because if I remember it really well, then I'm not going to appreciate it as much because it just feels more stale because I already know everything that's coming. But no, actually, that's why it can be kind of fun looking at like old games I just completely missed that look interesting, because it's like, oh, cool. That I actually they can have a different feel to them too, because you know games past a certain year, you know, this predates things like extra monetization or DLC or just having all this like trying to dumb down storylines or things like that. And they were just trying to make a good game for a specific audience. And there's all sorts of like little thing. It can just have like a real fresh feeling the way that a lot of newer games don't, or sometimes rough around the edges in a good way, because sometimes it's in a bad way too. But where even games, even some newer games, even if they don't have like all that extra crap that kind of like rips you out of the game, they can be streamlined to the point where it takes like all the surprise out of it. You know, sometimes most improvements I appreciate, whereas it can be also always be a little Wild West, especially the older the game you get. So yeah, like, or actually just the existence of the internet can kind of shift things too, you know. Knowing that they could like look it up, and knowing that you can like look up everything about the game. Actually, with some smaller indie games, that's not the case. There'll be nothing on it. So you can kind of get some of that feeling a bit that you used to. It's like, okay, you're on your own if you want to play through this game because nobody's written about it anywhere. So I'm just saying, thoughts on the Half-Life 3 leaks. I actually haven't been following it at all. I don't even know what's going on with it. They're saying it seems like it's actually happening. It would be the funniest thing if Half-Life 3 comes out before Freeman's Mind finish. Yeah, that would be on me, I guess. I was, oh yeah, here, let me ask. This is not a good sampling, But let's ask the audience, what would you rather have next? The next Game Dungeon episode or Freeman's Mind? Because I've been focused, because the original plan was to do, like, get Sabotain, then do the follow-up, then do some shorter Game Dungeons, and then do, like, a spree of Freeman's Mind. But I was looking through some comments, and a lot of people, I can't tell how much. Okay, see, it seems like there's a split there. It's like every other, just from a sampling. You're gonna have more Freeman's Mind. It's just the question. I was trying to get more caught up on Game Dungeon first, but maybe I shouldn't do that. It just should alternate. But okay, see, Game Dungeon seems to edge out Freeman's Mind now. But this is a very small sampling. Yeah, I guess when this goes on YouTube, if you guys want to upvote which you'd rather see more Game Dungeon next or Freeman's Mind. But like this, you're getting both before I resume the movie, okay? Resume work on the movie. So that I'm trying to like stockpile as much as I can within the time I have. Both of them, so. You think you should do a promo of Stop Killing Games with Freeman's Mind? Oh, no, but I think I'd be preaching to the choir. How many people are watching Game Dungeon or Freeman's Mind that just haven't even heard of Stop Killing Games? I don't think it's that many people. So if I thought it would do something, then sure. But I could do that, and it might not move the needle at all on people signing things, so. I am going to have another video on Stop Killing Games. I might have that list that I talked about. And I might do a short video on that to talk about it. And I might do, if things are going poorly next month on the initiative, I'll probably do kind of like a wrap up on the campaign too. It's kind of like a last chance sort of thing to kind of let people know this is dead unless we have intervention. So. But I have to see how the ad buying goes, if that moves things much at all. So, are you going to do a new video on operating systems? No, but I am, at some point, I'm going to have a follow-up to the GUI video, but I need to get more done on that. Yeah, well, somebody's saying civil protection, please. The problem is civil protection takes up so much time making them. So for that kind of time, I'd rather dump it into the movie. I will say, if you like civil protection, I'd be very surprised if you don't like the movie. So. Okay. But yeah, I am overextended, and I apologize about that. That's one of my ongoing flaws, that I'm trying to shut stuff down. That's why I really was not kidding about not wanting to Stop Killing Games and not wanting to maintain it. It's just, I feel like nothing would have happened if I hadn't. So, because I had enough I was working on already without having to add this to everything else. But this was the only opportunity for it I had ever seen on this scale. So at least I won't have regrets on that in particular. So, where was your last vacation at? I don't know the last time I've had a vacation. I mean, it's like, okay, because like the last time I like left the area was, I think, to go to Warsaw, but that was to get my passport renewed. And I don't know if I'd really call that a vacation. And like before that, I had some like conference thing to attend to about machinima. I mean, that was like sort of a vacation, but it wasn't. I'm thinking like a vacation like initiated by me of something I wanted to do. It's like, my God, I mentioned in the free ride episode, I don't know if that's even happened since I've been here. So it might have been like, what, 2000. Okay, I did the meetup. That was something I just wanted to do for fun. So it wasn't really a vacation. I mean, it was like one day. There was like 2 separate days that I basically just had fun with people. And that was when, what, 2010? So yeah, I don't think I've had like a vacation in 15 years, because It's not that I wouldn't want to, it's just that I have this feeling that I'm perpetually behind. The question before this, people are asking, where the hell is Freeman's mind? You know, and I'm behind on that. And I'm behind on Game Dungeon. And the campaign, I'm not really behind on, but I haven't done every last thing I can do to try to make it successful. There's like one avenue left. So it's the more I can, and then I'm behind on the movie. So vacations are kind of like doubly worse because on one hand, that's time I'm not able to like work on stuff to earn money. And the second, I'm spending money more than I would be normally because it's not as economical traveling. So it's like a double, so that kind of increases the stress like double on me. So I don't know, I guess vacation is for people who have jobs that have clear hours where they're not working, I guess, is the thing. No, I mean, I think it would be fun, but it's just, there'd be too much stress from doing it, is the problem. Okay. Have you ever played Earthbound, Undertale, or Deltarune? I have played Earthbound. I played a little bit of Undertale, but didn't really get into it. I've never even heard of Deltarune. What do you think of these types of games? Well, I can only judge Earthbound, I guess. I think I hate the turn-based combat, but I liked it overall. It's outside of that because it's kind of surreal. Like it's a contemporary setting, but then it gets weird. And yeah, I like that mix, you know, so. Has good music, good visuals, like big epic adventure. I like all that stuff. I just hate turn-based combat. So. Would you consider writing on a game that got a remake while comparing the original to the remake through the lens of how the gaming industry and game dev have changed through the years? I feel like you're a person who would think of a lot of angles no one else would. Well, I probably wouldn't know a lot of the things a lot of people in the industry would know, or more people more familiar with the industry that would know that I would. Writing on a game that got a remake while comparing to the original to the remake. Oh, okay. I thought they were talking about the writing quality from the original compared to the newer one. I was saying usually they try to keep them similar. Sometimes they go off rails. Like I haven't played either one, but I know there's a big difference between Saints Row original and the remake. Like just from apparently like tonally and the dialogue. But yeah, just a comparison of a remake to the original. Yeah, I could do that. In fact, one of the games I was considering doing is a remake of talking about it. So yeah, I might do that at some point. But I think it has to be one where it's like there's really a lot to talk about as opposed to just like they updated some textures and stuff. Like there's a big jump. Like I was thinking what? Yeah, those are something that came up in a previous chat. Like, what's the oldest year? Yeah, or no, what's the most recent year of a game coming out that that can still like really warrant a remake? Because I was thinking they did a remake of the first Gears of War, and I'm thinking that's not. I mean, yeah, they probably did the textures and the models better, but is that a game that like really needed a remake? Especially, yeah, like if you're just like improving the visual quality and that sort of thing, or whereas I think the games that are most worthy of a remake are ones that are kind of transformative, or like Resident Evil 2 and 3, or what? Well, I haven't played, but the Final Fantasy 7. You know, where the original was like a 2.5D game with a lot of limitations, and the new ones are fully 3D. So that's like a really transformative thing to make a remake of that. So Yeah, somebody says quarantine is, yeah, quarantine would benefit from a remake for sure. But I mean, sometimes they fix a lot of gameplay stuff too. But yeah, no, I'm not against talking about a remake if I have things to say. Will you ever do a video on the early Need for Speed games or any other classic driving franchises? Yeah, I could. I mean, I mentioned Need for Test Drive 3. That's a classic driving game. Yeah, I might do others. I just have to figure out what I want to say. It's because like I kind of don't want to just make a game. I kind of don't want to make an episode where like I talk about, this stuff's great in the game. I talk about stuff that's obviously has some problems, and then that's it. Like it needs to be. I either need to make it funnier or just go off on something else. This is sparking in my brain. So. Are there any games you plan to cover but can't anymore due to whatever reason? Oh, okay. Which ones, if any, do you most regret not covering? Well, I don't know if I have really any that I regret not covering. I mean, most of them I can just still do them as an option. That's part of my drive behind Stop Killing Games. It's like, why the hell should a game that you've paid for get to decide that you can't play it anymore? I should be able to replay that game any damn time I feel like it. If there's a technical problem, well, then that's on my end to fix. So it's there shouldn't really be an expiration date as to like when I want to play a game. I mean, there's something. Now, if it's a multiplayer game, there's an organic, unspoken expiration date of how many players there are available for you that want to play it. But that's a natural thing. That's not something that's like artificially imposed on people. And plus, that's something, if you really want to, you can solve yourself. You can seek out people who would be willing to play like some random old game with you multiplayer. So that's something where it's still on you to be able to do it. Okay, I may start. We're getting questions about food, so I might start skipping more. Let's see. Is Freeman's Mind a hell job? No, not at all. Is your game list up to date? No, but it was updated recently, but I still have like 40 more titles to add to it. I'm getting a little more picky now about which ones I add to it. Oh, I didn't have Hostile Waters added? Okay, I can add Hostile Waters. Yeah, sometimes the older ones, I just forget. They're on like kind of like a separate list for me, especially if I already have a copy of them. But let's see. Has anyone ever correctly guessed what game you cover on Game Dungeon next based on the hints you gave? Yeah, Daemonica. Some people got that one. I'm sure there's a couple others. Oh, well, the chat might know. I don't always remember who was predicting what. It's kind of a... Okay, somebody said with Carnival. Somebody called it. Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay. They're saying that, and I probably mentioned that in a previous video, then forgot I said that. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure there were one or two others. Maybe Sin. I'm not sure, though. Yeah, sometimes I don't... I've tried to get out of the habit of giving hints unless I'm really damn sure that one's next. Because I hate giving hints and then realizing, no, I need to do another one. And then I gave the hint for the wrong game. So it's like, damn it. So yes, the next Game Dungeon better be the follow-up. What do you think of the Marathon game franchise and the new game coming out? Also, would you do a Game Dungeon piece on the older Marathon games? I mean, maybe. I started playing some of the first one, but it was giving me that maze-like feeling that I'm not a fan of that. I don't know if they got away from that with the sequels or not, but it was off to a rough start for me. I haven't been following the new Marathon remake stuff at all, so I don't know what's going on with it. I mean, is it like a remake or is it like a reimagining kind of thing, or is it one of those things where it's like marathon and name only, or just like very loosely? Because I was thinking like the game Prey, the newer one, really just doesn't have much at all to do with the original one, that sort of thing. Um, okay. That was a chat. That was a question in the chat and the pre-submitted ones. Are there any home consoles you remember owning as a child, or was it mostly home computers? All I had was later on was a Game Boy. I only had a handful of games for it, but that's the only console I think I had growing up. And even with computers, I kind of had to share it with my dad. So I didn't really have much of my own computer until much later. Yeah, I guess freshman year of high school, I finally saved up enough to have my own system that I put together. Okay. Will you ever cover a GTA clone on Game Dungeon? Perhaps a very significant one in gaming history, like Mafia, Driver, Sleeping Dogs, etc. I don't have plans to, but it's possible. I mean, Sabotain was like sort of halfway there. Mafia I've played. I thought it was all right. I'm just not like huge into Mafia stuff. Driver isn't really a GTA clone. Maybe one. I've only played the first one though. I mean, it's just a linear driving game, but maybe like the later ones are more GTA-ish. Sleeping Dogs, I tried playing a little bit of, but I just wasn't getting into it. So, I mean, if the game strikes me, I might, but. So I was saying, you think that June or July will be the month that the boost will happen? If we don't start getting a real boost next month, I think we're cooked. So, I mean, it could be like late next month, but if anything beyond that, it's just going to be dumb luck if we have a boost. So, and I wouldn't count on it, and I'm going to assume it's not going to make it at that point. Okay, this is a long question, but they're saying Game Dungeon is what, over a 10-year-old project. Freeman's Mind is, yeah, going on 20. Well, I don't think it's there yet, but how do you feel about having such a lasting niche impact for so long? It's like I said earlier, I just feel perpetually behind and I feel dumb about it, but I'll just keep trying to make more. I can at least finish off Freeman's Mind at some point. And if I make the movie and then just kind of catch up on more games with Game Dungeon, then I'll feel a little bit better about it. So, let's see. Yeah, I mean, I feel stretched thin on too many directions, really. Okay. Have you talked to Josh Strife Hayes at all now that we're well into April? Well, I think he only got back like a week ago or something. So I'll probably message him soon. The reason I didn't was for two reasons. One, he was like out of the country for a couple months, I think. So I figure he probably has all kinds of things to deal with coming back. So I didn't want to like bombard him with that. And two, I think even if I have a discussion with him and it goes great, I'm just acting under a pessimistic view that it's not going to move the needle that much. So I figure the reaching out to like basically untapped demographics of people who don't even know this exists is probably going to do better. But I mean, yeah, I'll still reach out to him. I just didn't want to be in his face about it, especially since it's less time sensitive for talking to him. But yeah, I probably will in the next few days. You said the follow-up episode is next. Will this be like last time where you say it several times until it actually happens? No, because I'm already in that territory, and I feel very dumb about it. So no, it'll be the next Game Dungeon. like, or do you want to get to it fast so you can talk about conversations with Curtis? I will absolutely mention him on the next follow-up episode. Again, that's something I kind of wish I did over a year ago, but I'm constantly behind. Though I will say I do not think that's going to be the longest segment on the follow-up episode. So yeah, you can guess which game that I've already talked about is going to get the most screen time on the follow-up episode. Because I think there's going to be a clear winner. I won't say which one, but there's one that just strikes me as, yeah, this is going to be the biggest chunk. So, but absolutely, I will talk about conversations with Curtis on the follow-up episode. So if Half-Life 3 comes out, what would your response be? Now I have to do even more Freeman's Mind? Or finally they took their time? It would just be like, probably neither. It would just be like, okay, well, I at least have to finish Half-Life 2, and it wouldn't change that. And then for them taking a long time, it's like, I'm not the one who is like really waiting on that compared to other, because I've had Half-Life injected into me just through doing Freeman's Mind and Civil Protection with the Source engine. So it's like, I'm not dying for Half-Life 3. So it's okay. It's not that they're bad games. It's just that I've been oversaturated. So you think you're one of the first okay, I'm quoting this literally. You think you're one of the first video game reviewer, or do you consider Game Dungeons a different genre? I'm definitely not one of the first video game reviewers. Do I consider Game Dungeon a different genre? I feel like Game Dungeon, I'm still trying. I don't think it's like strictly a review. I'm still trying to, this sounds stupid, but I'm still trying to figure out like what feels right with it. And it still doesn't quite feel like, most episodes don't quite feel like what I want. And so. Okay, somebody's talking about my pronunciation, and apparently I've changed how I pronounce stupid. And it's becoming more of a T sound. Maybe. It's probably unconscious if it is. So. Any amusing or memorable anecdotes from your time in LA? Well, there was, yeah, I mean, waiting for the bus. I mean, I remember there was a guy having a very angry conversation with someone who wasn't there. It's like, no, you talked. You know, like, I mean, I guess it's kind of sad but it stood out. There was a guy on the bus, I remember, who basically wanted me specifically to apologize for everything that was done to black people. And I was thinking, it's like, well, you know, this felt kind of like baity that he was doing that, but his friend was saying, no, you don't have to answer this. And then, and like, I was trying to like say that, like, you know, this is kind of like collective blaming here, that like, you know, I'm not in support of policies that would be harsher for one race or another, at least consciously. And then while that was happening, another guy who was black got upset at him. Like, his friend was just trying to get him to stop. And then finally, after a couple minutes, another guy who was black got really pissed at the first guy. And it looked like there was almost going to be a fight on the bus over it. But then my stop was coming up and I got off before it. I don't know how escalated it got. I remember also on the bus, there was, like, at one point, there was a homeless guy sleeping on there, and the bus driver just stopped and came to the back and just basically started attacking the guy, shouting at him for sleeping on the bus. And yeah, LA can be a rough place, you know. I'm trying to think of like amusing stories that happen there. Well, I told. Well, I mean, I guess it's not really something that happened, but I remember thinking I was kind of amazed how Taco Bell could survive in LA because there is so much Mexican food that's varied for pretty much every budget level. That I would think, how would this how could Taco Bell compete with that? Because this is all going to be kind of better Mexican food for the most part. And one of the people who lived there explained it to me, that they said that some of the people who eat the most at Taco Bell are immigrants or people visiting from Mexico, because for them it's exotic. Like so for them, they're used to real Mexican food, but then they have Taco Bell. It's like, what is this? This is so weird, So I thought that was kind of funny, how people talked about it. So let's see. What are some other things that happen in LA? Well, I mean, it's not that interesting, but I remember seeing like the power lines, like some of them felt like they were just barely strung together, and you could like see sparks coming out of them. Like you hear like a really loud buzzing, like, and like every once in a while you occasionally see sparks, that sort of thing. I remember at one point there was I don't think it was a volcano. Yeah, might have been some sort of forest fire in the distance. There was like this large kind of plume of smoke that it looked like it was a volcanic eruption in the distance. And that was noteworthy because almost every day there it's just a clear blue sky. So, having stuff that stood out to it was kind of, okay, well, I guess, yeah, sort of a minor story. I would sometimes come home like late, and because that was the only time I could record, because they didn't have a recording situation set up for me. Yeah, because why would I possibly need that? For Freeman's Mind, or at that time Civil Protection. And sometimes I come through kind of hungry, and there wouldn't be much open, but there was a Jack in the Box on the way home from my walk to the bus stop to where I lived, and the thing is, what bugged me was the Jack in the Box would close, but the drive-through would not. So once or twice, there was nobody around. I just went and walked down the drive-through and ordered something until they finally told me to stop doing that. You couldn't do it. So that's another example how you're kind of a second-class citizen in the United States if you don't have a car. So it's like, yeah, you can literally get food with a car in this instance that you cannot get if you don't have one. So, let's see. Any other stories? I guess not too many. There's probably stuff I'm forgetting, but okay. Recently, Paul Morgan Stetler did a stream where he watched a bunch of Freeman's Mind episodes. I actually was unaware of that. Any thoughts on that? I didn't know. Look, I mean, he has my email, but in general, I'm happy to come back on his stream, especially if we play more adventure games I haven't tried before. So I'm pretty Yeah, that's pretty much my only caveat. I want it to be a game I haven't played. And there's plenty of adventure games I haven't played, so I'm fine with appearing again. I don't want to push myself on his stream, because I figure he has he's had many more notable guests than myself, so I don't want to mess with his style. But yeah, no, I'm open to coming on. In fact, I was going to mention that when what in the follow-up episode, how I got to play King's Quest with him, and while we're doing that, Ken Williams hopped in the chat. So I'm like, wow, it's gonna be kind of hard to top that. So, for me. What are your thoughts on accelerationism? That one's kind of tricky. yeah, like I think the concept is like if things are bad, then you kind of hope they get worse very quickly to kind of wake people up to bring about change. I mean, I feel like that's kind of it can backfire for. I think what it, yeah, I thought about it. For some situations, I am in favor of. For others, it's like you're more likely to just make things worse. I prefer accelerationism to no solutions, like or to nothing trying to bring about change. But it's not necessarily the best option. A lot, like one area where I'm thinking of accelerationism is like on a smaller scale was like with Microsoft, like with the Xbox One, the original. I think that's an example where accelerationism might have actually bought some time because they were going to track like your biomedical data on it, the original version. They weren't going to allow used games. You had to dial in every 24 hours on it. I think there were other restrictions also. Yeah. Oh, yeah. At the end of it, it was not clear if once they stopped supporting it, all your games would be bricked. So that made a lot of people go yikes and like want an alternative to it. And at the time, Sony offered an alternative. So with that viral, how to share your PlayStation game video, and that caused some blowback to it. However, we have seen some of those things creep back in. So it's hard to say if that just bought time or not. Yeah, I don't know, because if you don't have a solution to it and the accelerated effect is just going to make things worse and isn't likely to bring about people coming in with a solution, that it's just speeding things up, making things worse. But that said, if things are getting worse and worse slowly, I hate that and kind of wish for change. Just like, okay, well, if things are getting worse and worse, well, let's try something different. Okay, well, that's still bad. Well, let's try something else different. To me, just accepting things getting worse and worse and then not trying to change anything, to me, I hate that. That's like a doom mentality to me. So, like I think I made the analogy before to like if you're on a lifeboat, that's like drinking salt water because you're thirsty. It's like that's just gonna make things worse, but it's not gonna solve it, even if it feels good in the moment. So, but accelerationism might not bring about the effects that you're looking for. Also, yeah, that's another thing. I mentioned Microsoft. That's another thing I'm curious about. That's one area where I think maybe accelerationism would help, because what Microsoft is bringing back, that recall feature, although I think they're making that opt out. And I almost wish they weren't, because I feel like that would scare the hell out of more people if that was like mandatory. And that might make them think, geez, but if there maybe we do need to like look for alternatives to Windows or something like that. So I don't know. It's oh, okay. Well, just because I noticed it, have you heard about Anachronox? Yes. In fact, I've been watching a playthrough of it. I haven't finished it yet. I think it's the sort of game I'd like a lot. And I think if it wasn't for the turn-based combat, and I think it's very impressive for the time. And it almost blows my mind they were doing that on the Quake 2 engine. So yeah, I need to finish it. But yeah, I like it a lot from what I've seen. I just hate turn-based combat. So, but yeah, I think Windows is one of the ripest areas for that. Maybe progress could come from accelerationism, because for many aspects of Windows, you have the alternative of Linux. But the problem is, for many things, it's also a bigger pain in the ass. And for some things, there isn't really a replacement. But if Microsoft is turning up the heat so much on Windows to make more and more things unbearable to more and more people. Maybe progress comes from that. I don't know. But that's one area I could see. I could see maybe accelerationism would work because the recall feature seems to scare more than your average number of people. They're like, yeah, we're just going to take screenshots of everything you do, and we'll use AI monitoring to help you figure it out. Yeah, well, of course we won't use that for anything else. Pinky promise, it's a lot of people that are not going to be cool with that. So let's see. Have you tried reaching out to Tim Kaine for interview or the like? He's covered cane preservation in his latest video. No, I haven't. I mean, I'd be happy to talk to him if he's interested at all. It's again, we're kind of entering the territory where it's like, even if I talk to him, everything goes great. It's probably not going to get a lot more signatures. And I'm just, that's the thing. We can have this. That's the unfortunate part of this, is we can have the support from so many people, but if we can't pass that threshold, it doesn't matter. None of it matters then. So, but yeah, again, I might be worth reaching out to him, but I think his reach isn't big enough that it would really sway it, is the problem. But again, if he was interested, sure, I'll talk to him. Again, there's very few people I'm saying like, no, I will not. I don't think it's a good idea for have a conversation. These are people who are kind of like on the border or have already been banned from YouTube. And it's usually, actually, I haven't had anything like that in months anyway. It's where they're either known for or cover topics that are like, so what I would call like nuclear, that it's like such a level of controversy that is beyond anything we would have with Stop Killing Games. Like even the most extreme interpretation of it. And it might cover like real dark and serious topics too. That it's like a few things we have to be careful about, like, discussing. But nothing's like that has come up in months. And like one I politely declined to was this person had already been banned from YouTube for stuff they covered. And it's like, they were being like really edgy, I guess is the, like, I don't think it was like malice or anything like that or them, but they were going for like edgy to the, getting banned from YouTube edgy, which I personally might not necessarily have a problem with, but if I have to kind of like represent the movement on this, I have to be a little more reined in as to what I'm doing with. But it's mostly theoretical, the problem I'm talking about. So yeah, anyway, back to the point. If he's interested in talking about it, absolutely, I'll talk about it. The other thing is, I'm not trying to like hijack people's channels too with, yeah, come talk to me. Let me be on your channel. It's not like that. I really hope the bigger the YouTuber, especially in gaming or streamer or whatever, the more there's a chance they can talk about Stop Killing Games or the initiative. If having me on helps, great. If they'd rather not have me on their channel because that's not their style, that's fine. Just what I hope for is that they talk about the initiative, Let's see. It's a longer question. Someone's asking if I've tried Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. I played a little bit of the first one, but wasn't really getting into it. But I mean, a lot of people really like that one, but I'm not like a huge Star Wars fan either. I mean, I like it okay, but like for me, Star Wars, like I'm there for the spectacle. So show me like over the top, imperial structures, alien worlds, or just like all in, blaster battles, stuff. So I want sci-fi spectacle out of Star Wars. If you're giving me that, we're good, So, this is a longer question. They're talking about kids games. Okay, they're talking about the game Hot Wheels Bash Arena. Yeah, I'm not huge on isometric racing games. I don't know. It's just harder for me to get into it. Would I consider doing a dive of games of that time? I can. I'll talk about almost pretty much any time period game, though. I'm usually not talking about brand new ones because, again, almost everybody usually is, or they'll be real buggy, uh, or the performance can be pretty demanding depending on them. But I guess for indie titles, it'd be all right. But yeah, I'm not really into isometric racing games. It just, I don't know. I just can't get into it the same way. Okay, somebody's suggesting Lemmy is an open source alternative to Reddit. The thing is, okay, here's the problem. Maybe it's less than I think so. I clicked on it. And they're like, okay, join a server. I did a server, and then it's like I went to several categories, and it seemed a little confusing for what it is. And if I for things that are like alternatives, I kind of want as the least path of resistance. So if somebody so if it's an alternative thing that not a lot of people have heard of, then it needs to be really easy. But if it's an alternative that people have heard of, okay, that a lot of people are going towards, then okay, maybe that's all right because this is where the masses are moving anyway, that sort of thing. Okay, I'm going to skip a few more questions and I'll take live ones in a minute. So I was talking about space walruses. There wasn't really a question here other than have they been cloned? I think that's more of a free expression kind of thing. So, another one about Parasite Eve. Talked about that. What are the biggest lessons that you've been thankful developers learned and put into practice today as compared to before earlier days of gaming? Even if the older game is considered good or a classic. Geez, I feel like there's a lot of exceptions. I would say, okay, there seems to be a lot more games that are 3D games that have field of view sliders, so I appreciate that. I mean, there's still plenty that don't, but there's a lot more than there used to be. I thought we were getting away from the tint everything yellow, gray, or brown, but the Oblivion remake came out and they tinted the hell out of that one, it looks like. Yeah, I made a post on Twitter about it, and I should have had a different screenshot because people thought, because I was just talking about like the color and the lighting used in the post, but people thought in that particular screenshot they weren't showing the atmospheric haze, and they assumed that because I didn't mention that oh, I just don't know what I'm talking about. Have you ever gone to an art class? And just no, there are screenshots from Oblivion that have the atmospheric haze. It's just farther out, but okay. I saw. Look, from what everybody says, it sounds like the new Oblivion remake's great. I don't doubt that, but if we're just talking about color, I've played Oblivion, the original. People were talking about like, oh, I had a few thoughts on that. Like, okay, the new one, just looking at screenshots, there's a few things going on that absolutely changed the feel of it for me from original Oblivion. The first, and some of these even for Sky Oblivion, but to a lesser extent, just from the screenshots. Okay, so for the Oblivion remake, one, they're doing tinting where everything is a little brown, maybe brownish gray to some extent. For some areas, it's not as noticeable or it works well with that particular lighting. Others, it looks awful. Second, the foliage, it seems, I don't know, does the new one have seasons? I don't know. That might change my opinion a little bit. But just the whole environment seems more arid than the original. I'm just talking about things like the textures for like the soil or like in the original, like let's say you had some grass and underneath it, there would be like this kind of like matted grass texture and it would just all be green. Well, in the new one, they might have grass, but then underneath it, like in those same areas, it'll be like this light brown texture that as someone who is out in the forest, I'm out in the forest basically every single day for exercise. So I'm seeing forest all the time. And what that says to me is that's for either certain regions or for places that have had a drought a long time, that kind of light brown specific shade of soil. So it's, what? Okay, somebody's saying the thing about that tinting is that it can be stylistic and actually leads to the aesthetic of the game. But why the hell does Oblivion need a tint? I'll get to that in a second. So it's, so you can have the same area, but the textures themselves they're using them, it just makes me feel like this feels like a drier place. This feels like this is in like the Mediterranean, or like I mentioned living in LA. Maybe it looks more like it was in LA or something like that. Or parts, yeah, like parts of Italy or something like that. So it's just like these, so even if you have like all these props and everything to show grass and trees and everything, just that underlying soil, it triggers like this nature uncanny valley effect. Again, as someone who's out, I grew up in Southwest Virginia, and again, where I am now, I'm going out to exercise in the forest every day. So I have a fair clue of like what deciduous, temperate environments are like. And this is not it. Like it's off. So that's the second thing. And the third thing for Oblivion in particular is the grass and the leaves, they're just smaller. Now you can argue that that's makes it more realistic, though you can have really tall grass in reality, or really thick trees. I mean, yeah, they were doing some cheats in the original with like the trees swaying, but it looked pretty good. But I'm not saying they needed to do that, but the foliage was just bigger and thicker in the original Oblivion. So we have brown over everything. We have textures that are more arid, and then we have like just less full vegetation. And all that combined, it just feels so different from every screenshot I've seen. So now I'm sure modders are gonna come in and just fix all of this. So, but that's Oblivion. It's just like there's plenty of other games that could that don't get that kind of treatment. But yeah, that's what throws me off. And like, now some people were talking about the original. Yeah, that was kind of like a pet peeve for me, that people kept calling this like, oh, this is the more realistic. This is the more realistic. I'm like, no, it's not. Like, it's for that environment. This feels like it feels I mean, maybe if it was in LA, but even then, like the way they do the tinting sometime, that's just different than, or color grading, however you call it. That's just different than just having like natural lighting for that region. Like, so it's just like the colors of the light being used is different from like, it's the difference from like between like say you're like in LA or Italy or something, and you go outside and it's like real yellow and it's like dusty. So it's like, so just looking around, it's kind of like yellowish and brownish. There's elements of that colors all over. Everything's kind of sunblasted. It's the difference between that versus putting on sunglasses that have a brown tint to them on top of all that. And that's what tinting does. It does like this kind of like, yes, you can argue that changes the atmosphere, but you can change the color of the sun in these games. To me, it just creates this really cheap feel to it that I don't know. It's so rare for me to see that tinting effect that just, it doesn't feel cheap to me. Like, and it just feels uglier than if they had like really come up with like really good values for their lighting instead. So yeah, we're not, that said, a whole lot of titles are using less tinting, though I feel like it might be getting a resurgence with Unreal Engine 5. I'm not sure. So, the thing about tinting is all that stuff I talked about with like careful colored values for like all your light sources, that takes a lot more work. Tinting is just like one value, bam, apply filter, done. And that, I mean, yeah, that wrecks a lot of the artistic value in my opinion, but it's easy. So, okay, so I got kind of off track there. So things that new games do now. Okay, there's exceptions to all of this, but for yeah, I almost yeah for the tinning, I almost want to have a comparison example of like photographs of the region that a game is trying to emulate that really capture that kind of like different color to the atmosphere and like again because of and the way the light bounces versus just raw tinting. Oh no, that was two more thoughts I had. Sorry, I'll be okay. The two other thoughts I had on this is, does everybody remember how it went kind of viral? Somebody posted a picture of a blue dress, and like half the internet was up in arms as to whether the dress was blue or yellow. To me, it looked blue. It's just under very sunny lighting conditions, but a whole lot of people said it looked yellow, and I could see how they thought that. This could be like that, where we feel like we're arguing about different things because we're literally seeing them differently. Yeah, so maybe what's going on with tinting is a little bit like that. And the other thought I had is that I have no idea why, but it's more and more common now for a lot of monitors to have wide gamut color, which means some colors get exaggerated. If you need to apply, it's an sRGB profile to kind of clamp it down to see things the way they're supposed to. The only people who really should be having wide gamut monitors are people doing like specialty graphics work, or maybe if you're watching like 10-bit color video or something like. I think this is like even different than HDR stuff. They're very specialized usage for it. Like if you're not a graphic designer, you probably don't need one. But I'm thinking, but maybe a whole bunch of people buy these monitors. They don't this isn't even a calibration thing. You actually need software to come in and clamp it if you have one of those, because I do on my system now. And maybe they're seeing all these maybe they're literally seeing a different image because some of these colors are getting over amplified, and so it looks off not having this stuff. So that's another thing that could be at play. Yeah, sorry, one more thing on Oblivion. The original Oblivion, in my opinion, okay, my memory is not perfect here. I remember the outdoor colors being excellent, except for like the sky. They kind of, because people were talking about like, oh, the original is so oversaturated. It's like, most of it wasn't, in my opinion. Like the sky in areas they could overdo it with like the teal and stuff like that. I agree. The sky could get oversaturated, and the bloom effect was sometimes too much. Actually, here, let's see. Can I find a shot of it? By and large, I thought the colors in Oblivion were very good, like for just outdoor areas. Now, obviously, they're like lighting limitations. So, like indoor areas, the new one I'm sure is like a lot better with the lighting and stuff. But just we're talking about the colors here, you know. So it's and like let's see here. Okay, maybe that's very slightly too blue. I don't know. Like here's a screenshot of the original, but there was another one. Yeah, I don't know. I think they really nailed. Oh yeah, that looks very realistic to me. Okay, let me. Okay, yeah, maybe the mountains in the Okay, here I have a better screenshot here. I'll put this in the. Let me get a link. If I can figure out how to get a link here. Okay, I gotta go to. It's one of these where if you right click on it, that's not the link. Okay, there we go. Yeah, this one. Okay, for the time. I mean, yeah, obviously the lighting effects aren't. That looks very on point to me. I mean, maybe that's like slightly too brown in the foreground, but that might depend on the time of day. I mean, so people are saying the new one's more realistic colors than that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's or no, here I can maybe show it on the chat. All right, here, let me. Okay, am I gonna close the wrong window if I do? Okay, no, I won't. I don't think so. Okay. Okay, let me try to. Let's see. Is that properties window? Okay, I think that's right. Yeah, all right. Oh shoot, it's not showing up. Oh shoot, now I moved it. Uh-oh, I moved the chat. Okay, lock the chat, move the. Okay, it's not showing up. I don't know why. Oh, wait. Okay, window. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah, okay, so the colors on that, you know, that looks pretty realistic to me. I mean, maybe depending on the time of day, it can maybe use a little more vibrancy, but those are unrealistic colors for 2006? You know? But yeah, so I'm being nitpicky because we have an obvious point of comparison. Here, I'll show the other picture I had if I can find it. Okay, here is the other one. Oh wait, no. Yeah, okay, here was the other one I was looking at. Whoa. Yeah. I mean, that's, I mean, it's not, not 100% there, but that's pretty damn close. So. Oh, well. Yeah, I got, okay, so things, modern games that do better. What? There seems to be more of a willingness for developers to want the player to beat the game. I appreciate that. I mean, obviously it depends on the developer, but there seems to be more of that. Where in the old days, you got the feeling they didn't care. Like you could get stuck 10 minutes in, have no help coming, and that's it. They're calling it a day. But yeah, Oblivion is a game I feel like really could use an engine update too, because the transition between the level of detail in the distance could be pretty jarring in a lot of areas. And also, I remember just traveling across the map. It was never like 100% smooth. Like during the transition, it could get pretty stuttery sometimes. So Oblivion is 100% a game I want to go back in some form or another and play in VR and just walk through it. Just see every area again. Okay, but yeah, for other things that developers do better now, there's definitely been progress overall with FOV. There's been more progress with not tinting the hell out of everything with brown and yellow. And yeah, and somebody was saying earlier that can be a style. It can be, but it's been so rare where I feel like that just doesn't overall make the game uglier as opposed to like colored lights. I think it's almost, I don't know what's going on, but. So I'm saying they admire my ability to get immersed in game worlds. They can't and envy me. Depends on the game world. And if you don't get sick from it, you might want to at least try VR if you can. You might be surprised at the level of immersion. Oh yeah, when I was talking about those 3 headsets earlier, something I learned, I didn't know actually. Apparently, to this day, every headset by Meta has been sold at a loss. So they're making it hell for others to compete at the lower end because they're selling at a loss. I heard the idea is it's kind of like a long-term strategy for them to get essentially monopolistic or near or serious foothold on augmented reality, which has a lot of growth potential, especially like in occupations and that sort of thing. And VR is kind of a stepping stone towards getting the technology there. But yeah, also Meta. Yeah, there was a good channel that had some news. It was by an engineer who had some news on VR, and he was talking about how Meta's trying to sabotage OpenXR by they're releasing a plugin and having updates to it, where the plugin makes it easier for developers to implement VR into their game. But the new update to the plugin is shutting out devices that aren't Meta ones. So I'm just like, damn, that is so hostile. That should be almost like monopoly. That should be almost like antitrust action, in my opinion. But okay, more questions. I went on longer than I meant to again. Let's see. Okay, so Freeman's Mind, it looks like Game Dungeon edged it out in the random sampling, but tell you what, if you want Freeman's Mind before the next Game Dungeon, try to bump it up in the comments. I'll try and take a look at it later. And I'm skipping through some more. Okay, someone was really impressed by Rama. They're wondering if I can recommend other thought-provoking books. I have to think. I'd say it's a mix, because some of it feels kind of stupid, but there is some thought-provoking stuff in there. Was it Blind Sight? Is that I think that's the name of it. One that's less stupid, Foundation. That's another one worth reading. Maybe the chat has some more suggestions. I'm trying to like speed round this now. Is there any prequel for a series you like from any media? Yeah, I mean, I like the prequels that kind of go and do their own thing and then kind of raise intrigue and aren't just a pure connecting the dots to like the next. Like, it has plenty of plot holes, but I like Prometheus as a prequel because I didn't know where they were going with the engineers from that. And I was thinking, oh, that's cool. That's like raising questions. I never even realized it was a prequel until decades after the fact, but Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, that's a solid prequel, you know? But because, again, it's just doing its own thing. It's not just, you know, connecting A to B, you know? So I think the key for me to be really interested in a prequel is to have so much fresh stuff with the story that I don't know how this is going to end up. And it's like, okay, maybe I know one character lives, but I don't know about this mystical reality we've uncovered that the original source material didn't even mention or something, you know? So it's like raise my intrigue. That's what I want out of a prequel. Someone's asking, what was that clip from the Games as a Service video with the guy with the glasses saying "Stop it"? The series is literally called "Stop It." Check the credits on that. It's basically from a video host. This is like mid 2000s or late 2000s internet video humor that I found on. I think it was called Channel 101. I think it's still up. Last time I checked, so you could go watch those. They had a whole series of them. It was like a spoof on like doing interventions of people, but it got kind of ridiculous. They also had they had several funny, like low budget, but like good writing comedy stuff in there. I think they had Jesus Christ Super Cop, Defenders of Stan, Utopia. That was one I liked. Yeah, they had some. I think there was another one called like Stuck in a Closet. If you want to see like low budget but good comedy, that's a great channel website to check out. So I was asking for favorite demos from the demo scene. I haven't even been able to keep track of what's going on there. I'm behind, way behind on my games list. Let's see. I'm skipping ones I don't have a great easy answer to. Somebody's asking for Quarantine 2 on Game Dungeon. If that happened, that might. I've actually only played some of it. Like I can't remember if there was like a shareware to it that let you. I for sure got to like the first city. I don't think I got past that though, so I might play it eventually. Is there any equivalent alternative to Tyrion? There might be. I mean, there was that. Oh, what was that game? Beyond the Storm or something. Check Accursed Farms junk channel. Whatever. I posted the ending to it. You don't have to watch the ending, but that'll give the title to the game. I forget what it is. Well, here I can check quick. Beyond the Storm. Yeah, that one's really trying to copy Tyrion, but there's some others that might. I'm not sure. Somebody's asking about hip hop artists I like. I'm not overly versed in many. I mean, it's probably because they mentioned how I like Cypress Hill. I mean, yeah, maybe it would probably be better if people could tell me what I probably like. The ones, I mean, these are pretty mainstream, like, you know, Ice Cube, NWA. Well, yeah, I found out about them from Office Space, Ghetto Boys. And I guess they're kind of rap metal, but Insolence, so like them. So maybe based on that, you could tell me what I would like. I'm not overly versed in lots of hip hop artists. So. Or there's a lot I know, but I just kind of think they're like all right. But the ones I mentioned have a lot that like, yeah, these are really good. So, for my taste. What is the best alternative to CRT? I'm probably the wrong person to ask. I'm sure there's some retro gamers that could give you better answers, but there's been a lot of work put into shaders for them. It's so I'm saying the quality of motion is not the same as it was back in the day. Well, I mean, it depends what you're looking at, because yeah, they would have that like streak for like brighter objects. Um, yeah, but you also had like the black flashing in between every other frame. So I don't know, maybe that's the effect you're looking at. But there's a community out there of people who give this a lot of attention. That they, again, I'm the wrong one to ask, but and there's probably some pretty impressive shaders now. I'm someone who doesn't miss CRTs. I'm happy with like good IPS monitors. So. I've never tried a vertical mouse from the people asking. Okay. Some stuff I answered. Someone's saying they're 56 and they keep coming back to Game Dungeons and Freeman. They don't understand why they're comforting, but they are. Well, I can't even tell you about Freeman, but for Game Dungeon, one thing I know I want for Game Dungeon is like I really like the atmosphere of like the early Angry Video Game Nerd videos where it just kind of like feels like you're sitting there on the couch with him and he's talking about this game. It's like, yeah, can you believe this? Like, I was like, what are they doing? I like that feeling like you're visiting a friend and they're just kind of ranting about this game. So I'm more successful with it sometimes than others, but that's something I want to aim for. So that's definitely the direction. If I stray from it, that's definitely a direction I want to get back to with Game Dungeon. It's the kind of like a welcoming atmosphere, and also that can be kind of fun too. Where like I'll sometimes like intentionally say like, yeah, you know how this, and I'll make some reference, and this could be a reference. You have no clue what I'm talking about, but I'm just acting like you do and just going with it. And yeah, I'm gonna go. I'll continue doing that. So. Like I feel like Sabotain wasn't bad, but I feel like I could maybe do better too. Is for the recent one. Okay. Oh, okay. So I apparently need to rewatch the Deus Ex one. They liked that one a lot. I'll see. It's rare you run into games that kind of have this kind of transcendental element to them. At least in a way that I think is like just isn't look at it. Look, like here's the real world element. Look at the real world element. It's because some games can attempt it like that, and it just kind of loses it. But I feel like the way to do that is make it an entertaining game first, and then like have like some larger, maybe real world themes second. I think that's the way to approach it. And so, somebody's asking, okay, I don't know how much of this should answer. They're asking this about my wife's anxiety issues because I mean not in a probing way, but they're like for possible advice. I don't know if I don't think I should really comment on that either way. But she yeah, I shouldn't get into that. So I think that might be a little too personal to bring up. So just that I try to be very understanding of them for her. Okay, so you can do live questions. I'll try to get to some more. Just do the @Ross broadcast in the chat. I'll do a few more before I head out. What's your plan on Discord? Probably dying out soon. It's going public according to news. Oh yeah. Well, the disc, yeah, it's the quality could absolutely. I mean, that's like the kiss of death for a lot of things, taking things public, because then you can't really a lot of businesses no longer have the liberty to focus on long-term gains and making a better product. You have to answer to shareholders, and their only interest most of the time is making an increase in quarterly profits every quarter forever. And that's not sustainable, and it eventually results in hollowing out whatever it is you're doing. Actually, I heard that's what happened to Intel to some extent. They might be trying to correct the course on that, but they basically, it sounded like they really, I saw this article on it that sounds like they really hollowed out their research and development. And that's what set them behind. And then we're having CPUs that are physically defective for, I think, the first time in their history. So yeah, well, I only need the Discord long enough to finish the European Citizens Initiative. After that, it's like, if people want it, fine. If it dies off, it's still okay. So again, I'm working everything about this has been me working backwards from trying to like stop games from being destroyed with the campaign. So, have you heard about Cascadeur, AI-assisted 3D animation tool? No, I haven't. That's 100% the sort of thing I'd research for the movie. Any opinions on the No One Lives Forever series? Yeah, I mentioned. Yeah, I think I mentioned that last video chat. I think they're very good games. They're not quite my thing. I've played 1 and 2. They're not quite my thing specifically, but if you are into like the 60s spy theme that's like, a little over the top or tongue in cheek, then I could see where that could be somebody's favorite game if that's like really like a theme that you like. I tried playing a little bit of Contract Jack, but didn't get far into it. It didn't feel very good. But yeah, I think they're very good games. They're just not quite to my taste, but like I don't regret playing them at all. Let's see. Have you watched Za 2? It's the highest grossing animation film and the 5th highest grossing film, the highest non-Hollywood film. No, I haven't even heard of it. It's really good. Okay, well, I could check it out. I'm curious, why don't you have your Stop Killing Games videos under your Dead Game News videos on your website? Oh, gee, probably because they're sloppily organized, and it's like with the thumbnails. Maybe I should do that. It wasn't necessarily Dead Game News, but it was kind of, yeah, I see what you mean. I probably should have done that anyway. Maybe I can redo it. I mean, in all honesty, unless we have positive things to report, Dead Game News might end after this because I'll have done everything I could. And I don't particularly enjoy this topic. It's okay. Well, see, I guess I've been going a while. I don't see any other questions. Okay, so yeah, I guess I'll end it here. Yeah, I guess we're in the home stretch for, yeah, barring divine intervention or else a lot of luck, we're in the home stretch for the Stop Killing Game, the European Citizens Initiative. Like, I mean, if we don't have a significant progress in about a month, I won't say like the exact date, but then it's done, and I won't turn down any opportunity on it that I feel like has a chance, but I won't see a path to victory at that point either. For the videos, I'll get the follow-up episode done unless there's a big uproar and everybody says stop what you're doing, get Freeman's Mind out first next instead. I'll keep working on more videos are coming, so I feel like I'm getting more time to do. Can you do a quick orc impression? Okay. Let's see. Yeah, we'll do a Warcraft orc. Let's see. Okay. What do you think about Americans right now? Like a total lack of consumer rights is a bit on the nose. I feel like America's going to have a lot of rough times. I mean, though I also feel like they could be the canary in the coal mine too. So it's not like every place else will be fine. Okay, so orc in person. Okay, well, I'm trying to remember some like Warcraft 2 lines. Warcraft 2 lines I can do well. Why am I drawing a blank on this? Okay. Copy that. Wait, no, okay. Ahoy! Ahoy! Yeah. Okay, where's work? There's like some lines they gave, like some sentences. I don't want just like one word. Oh, come on. Why am I drawing a blank? Okay, I'll just make up something. Well, okay, yeah, it was Dabu. But I feel like there was stuff when you're like, oh yeah, hello mate, hello matey, we're being attacked. Yeah, that's a good one. We're being attacked. Well, the Wog is that's a different orc. I would need a British accent for that, you know. I don't want to get too loud on the mic just because I might blow it out at these levels because I mostly talk. Yeah, that's, what was it? Was Bill Roper the one who did the orc voices originally? But yeah, the Warhammer orcs would be, man, I would need to read something for the Warhammer orcs because they're going to be so thick with British slang that I'm going to do a poor job. I'm almost done. People say orcs dangerous, but people only say that because orcs eat people. Makes you think. Okay, I think that's a good place to end it. I'm not the best. That one kind of strains my voice a little bit, but. All right, I'll see you. More videos coming. More interviews on Stop Killing Games, though I imagine people are sick of it by now if you're watching this. And we'll just see how it goes with trying to get trying to reach the signature threshold. I'm not calling it yet, but it's getting close. So, all right, see ya.